Hello! Thank you for joining us for this video overview of the Colorado Pika Project. If you are attending a Colorado Pika Project field training this summer, you're in the right place, as this is a required video to watch ahead of coming to the training session. In this video, we will explain what the Colorado Pika Project is, what being a volunteer Pika Patroller actually involves, and a few other things that you need to know ahead of the training session. This video is not, to be clear, a replacement for the training session, as that's where you'll actually go to learn how you collect the data with our rigorous methodologies as a community scientist. By the way, in case you're confused, we just changed the name of our project from the Front Range Pika Project to the Colorado Pika Project. We're the same organization, but our name and logo have changed. So before we introduce the project, let's introduce ourselves. So hi, I'm Alex Wells. I'm the Community Science Coordinator at Denver Zoo, and I am one of the two co-directors of this project.
Hi, I'm Megan Mueller. I'm Senior Conservation Biologist at Rocky Mountain Wild, and I'm the other co-director of this project. So Alex and I co-direct the Pika Project together, which encapsulates the fact that this project is centered on a partnership between Rocky Mountain Wild and Denver Zoo. As well as a community science initiative, the Colorado Pika Project couldn't exist without the dedication and passion of our volunteers. Since the project was founded back in 2010, over 400 community scientists have volunteered their time to be a part of this project. We couldn't do it without them, and we're excited for you to join the Pika Patrol. Together, Denver Zoo, Rocky Mountain Wild, and our partners are working to conserve pikas and safeguard the health of alpine ecosystems in Colorado. It's also worth noting that we work with numerous partners to achieve those goals, including the National Park Service, the U.S. Forest Service, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and several other partners. As we just mentioned, this Pika Project was founded as the Front Range Pika Project back in 2010. For the first 8 years of the project, we were focused solely on the Front Range. However, in 2018, we partnered with Rocky Mountain National Park and the White River National Forest to expand into those protected areas. This means that the Colorado Pika Project consists of 3 research projects, each one focused on somewhere different. The first is the Front Range, which you can see here in white on the left. The second is the White River National Forest, WRNF, which you can see here in blue. And the third is Rocky Mountain National Park, or RMNP, which you can see here in red. With around 200 scenic pika monitoring sites, we need to expand the Pika Patrol so that we can monitor everything, especially in our 2 newer projects. As well, while our Rocky Mountain National Park and White River National Forest projects each use the same methodology, which was developed by the National Park Service as part of their Pikas in Peril project, Front Range Project uses a different methodology. This means that volunteers in Rocky Mountain National Park can also volunteer in the White River National Forest and vice versa. However, a Front Range volunteer cannot volunteer at a White River or Rocky Mountain National Park site without extra training. We have 3 main goals of the Colorado Pika Project. The first is to use community science to understand how climate change is affecting pika in the Southern Rockies. The second is to learn how we can help pikas cope with climate change. And the third is to activate communities to take climate action. So now I'm going to hand it off to Alex to talk about volunteer expectations.
All right. So let's talk about what being a community scientist for the Colorado Pika Project actually involves. First off, you need to attend a field training to learn the methods that we use to collect data at a Pika site. If you're not already signed up, you can read about where and when we're hosting these training sessions on pikapartners.org, our website. We also have a few quick to-dos for you ahead of that training, but we'll talk about those in just a moment. So in addition to attending a field training, obviously a big part of being a Pika Patroller is actually going to one of these long-term monitoring sites and conducting a survey ahead of the end of October. Hiking to and surveying these sites is definitely the biggest part of volunteering in this project. And we've got a ton of different really beautiful locations where you can do that monitoring. those sites vary from project to project, but they're all really scenic and beautiful hikes to get to. And I'll also say that for our Rocky Mountain National Park and White River National Forest projects, the methodology in those is the same. And so if you are trained in a training on Trail Ridge Road, you are still welcome to go visit and survey sites in the Flat Tops or by Vale or by Aspen. If you are trained in our Front Range protocol, then that is different, and there's no, and you are not able to survey sites with the more complicated protocol that we use for most of the locations in Rocky Mountain National Park and all the locations in White River National Forest. So the hike to the Pika sites can vary from a 10-mile round trip, bushwhacking through dense trees and climbing steep slopes, to like a quarter-mile walk over easy alpine tundra. How difficult it is to reach each site varies enormously, but most involve hiking a few miles at high elevation. If you'd like to volunteer with us, you'll find detailed information on pikapartners.org to help you figure out which site or sites are the best fit for you. We have a few other points here, a few other expectations. So while visiting a Pika site, we ask that you follow all safety procedures, which includes, we really ask having a buddy with you when you're hiking. And all the other safety expectations can be found in the volunteer manual, which you should also really always have with you when you're volunteering in the field. As well, you need to follow our guidelines to prevent the spread of rabbit hemorrhagic disease virus, serotype 2, which is a deadly rabbit lagomorph pandemic that's sweeping across Colorado right now. And that means that you will need to disinfect your hiking shoes with preferably a bleach solution before you venture out to the sites. And finally, on this point, we want to highlight that it is essential to locate a specific point in the alpine landscape to conduct a visit to a Pika site. Well, this really applies to the Rocky Mountain National Park and White River National Forest projects. It's not as much of a concern with the Front Range project, where you're able to, where you just have to navigate to a talus field, like a general area on the mountain, more or less, like within a few hundred meters. But those other two projects, RMNP and WRNF, you need to find a specific point that is hundreds of meters or more from a trail. So it's essential to feel confident enough using your phone or a GPS unit to navigate in the mountains. In the field training, we'll go over how to use the phone app Gaia GPS for this navigation. And it's worth noting as well that volunteers in the Colorado Pika Project get access to the premium version of Gaia GPS, which allows you to download maps, like which is a huge plus if you're someone who likes spending time up in the mountains, hiking or biking or what have you. All right, so finally, the last big requirement, our big expectation for being a Pika Patroller, is that you actually submit your data online. It does not matter how excellent you are at surveying for Pika signs if you don't report your data to us, so that we can analyze it and get it to the land managers and Pika researchers who really need this data to help protect the species. So we have an easy to use online form this year where you can submit the Pika data you've collected. It's best to do that within a few weeks of surveying the site, please, so that it is still fresh in your memory. If you can't meet all of these requirements, then that is totally a-okay, no worries. Or if you don't want to meet all these requirements, because we have another much easier option to participate in the Colorado Pika Project and to be a Pika community scientist, and that's through the Pika Patrol app. And this is a smartphone app that we released in the fall of 2022, which is available on Apple and Android phones, and it's basically just a very easy tool for collecting Pika data. You don't have to attend a field training. All the training is within the app, and it's quite simple. You just take a photo or a recording of pika sign, whether that's scat or an actual pika or their calls, and you submit it to the database. And it's super easy to use, and you don't have to go to specific locations to do it. You can just record pika observations anywhere where you find pika. So your favorite hiking trail, or off in Montana or California. We'd really recommend it, and you can find more information about that on pikapartners.org. All right, but that's a lot of time spent talking about expectations and all of that. So I also want to highlight why it's pretty fantastic to join the Pika Patrol and be a part of this project. For one, you get to explore beautiful places. I'm someone who spent a lot of time in the mountains, and working on the Colorado Pika Project has shown me places in Rocky Mountain National Park or White River National Forest that I have never thought to go to. And that has always turned out to be a really cool experience. It's also a great way, it's a great thing to do if you're someone who really likes hiking, and you can, well, it's hiking while contributing to a cause, while protecting a species. And not just any species, but an iconic, cute Colorado little animal, the American pika. All right, now I'm going to hand it off to Megan to talk about what you need to do ahead of your field training.
So we've talked about what the Colorado Pika Project is and why you might want to volunteer and what it takes to be involved. But now let's talk specifics about what you need to do ahead of attending a field training. Pay close attention, because it's very important that you check off these boxes before joining us for whatever training session you've signed up for. And again, if you haven't signed up for a training, you can do so on pikapartners.org. You're most of the way through this video already, so you're off to a good start. Your to-do list is to watch this video plus one more on pika natural history, where we'll talk about pikas and the potential impacts of climate change on the species. And you'll find the videos on the training page of our website, which is linked in the logistics email that everyone who signs up for a training will receive. So the second thing on your to-do list is to carefully read the logistics email we sent. Please take the time to carefully review the information in the email that likely directed you to this video. That email has key information about the training, including the lack of restrooms at the training site, what COVID-19 precautions we're taking, the wait list, directions to the meeting location, and more. So please read that carefully. The email also links to our volunteer waiver and COVID acknowledgement, which you will be asked to fill out when you arrive at the training. We also have minor waivers available for kids accompanied by a parent guardian. So feel free to review those before you come to the training if you'd like. Safe and confident navigation is a huge part of the Colorado Pika Project, and we'll be sure to go over it and teach you how to do it in the field training. We strongly recommend the Gaia GPS app if you are willing and able to use a smartphone for navigation. We have a premium subscription to it for all of our volunteers, and there are numerous resources available on how to use Gaia for this project. However, if you'd prefer to use a GPS unit rather than an app on a smartphone, let us know in the Google form, as we have a limited supply that we can lend to volunteers each summer.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. This is Alex editing myself into the video 2 years after we recorded it. With just another little reminder, you should also download the Hobo Connect app to your phone. This app allows you to connect with and download data from these temperature data loggers that we set up in 2021 and had volunteers start working with in 2022. They're super useful because they allow us to see how temperature changes over the course of a year and over the course of multiple years at the locations where we're monitoring pika. And since pika are so climate sensitive, that's pretty useful data. You should only download the Hobo Connect app. Well, you only need it if you are volunteering on our public lands projects. Those are the ones in Rocky Mountain National Park and White River National Forest, not for the Front Range sites. All right, back to Megan.
The next thing to do is to be sure that you can bring the following items to the training. You'll need a lunch and snacks. You'll need water, preferably 2+ liters. You'll need good hiking shoes or boots that provide some ankle support and good traction on the talus. And then you'll want to have everything you need to be comfortable outside at high altitude in variable weather conditions for the day, such as medications, a rain jacket, and warm layers. And then you'll also want a backpack with a little extra space in it because we'll be handing out some Pika monitoring equipment that you'll use for the summer. And so you'll need some space to carry that.
Before we wrap up this video, we want to touch on some safety considerations. In our volunteer manual, we have a full list of safety protocols that we ask all of our volunteers to follow. We'll go over these protocols in the field training, but we cannot emphasize enough the fact that monitoring pikas always involves moving over rough terrain, working at high elevations, and navigating off trail in potentially dangerous spots. We don't say that to scare anyone away from volunteering. Absolutely not. And if you enjoy being outside in the mountains, it's a really fun way to contribute to our understanding and protection of the American pika. However, the last thing we want is for a Pika Patroller to have a bad experience or be hurt while volunteering. Please seriously consider whether or not you'll feel comfortable doing the following things. First off, rocky terrain. Talus is the rocky habitat of pikas, and while it tends to be in incredibly scenic locations, it can also be quite dangerous to move around in. Oftentimes, moving through talus requires using your hands to keep yourself steady, and in the process of looking for pika sign, volunteers often have to look underneath rocks and crouch and bend over and stick your head under things to look for pika scat and hay piles. Since talus can easily shift around under your feet, we recommend placing your feet carefully and keeping your weight centered on two rocks at the same time with each step while on the talus. We also suggest that you wear gloves to protect your hands. Finally, while you're moving around on talus, be sure that your partner isn't in the path of any rocks that might be dislodged by your movement. All right, second, high elevations. Pikas are incredibly tough little mountain dwellers. Places where they live are inhospitable for humans in high elevations. To put some numbers on that, our first two trainings of 2021 are at 11,400 and 12,000 feet. And for our monitoring sites, I don't think a single one is below 8,000. And the vast majority are above 9,000 or 10,000 feet. Attending a training and volunteering as a Pika Patroller requires you to be able to move around and even hike at high elevations such as these. While some sites are much lower than others, all sites are thousands of feet above Denver. We strongly recommend that you have some experience moving around at high elevations before you sign up for a training to become a CPP volunteer. And that, I believe, is it for us. Obviously, this is a video, and so you can't ask us questions right now, but you can reach out to Megan and myself at staff@pikapartners.org. If you've got any questions or concerns about the training, please let us know. And well, we're looking forward to seeing you there.